Welcome into Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, we'll preview Falcons in Washington. I need a Saints-like performance from CP84. And are the winds of change going to happen with the Hawks this year? It's all next. Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Hitting Hard is brought to you by BetOnline. We ask you to head to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta into your search browser. When you get there, hit that subscribe button, as we're just about at 5,000 folks that have subscribed. Leave us a comment. We are free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify and Odyssey. Leave us a 5-star review. Roku and Amazon Fire. Yes, we are there as well. So check us out on those platforms. And, of course, give me a follow on my personal Twitter page. That would be at JMCH316. So we get ready Sunday for Falcons and the Commodores coming up on Sunday. Listen, if the Falcons find a way to win this game, this is going to be an absolute slugfest. I really look at this game up in Washington this week and just think that the Falcons can escape with a win out of there. And we talked earlier in the week about how hot right now Washington is, right? They've won, 5 of their last 6? I mean, they've played really well, and they've gotten themselves back in the playoff hunt, 6-5. That whole NFC East is above 500 right now. But this is a tough physical football team, and I kind of have joked before about Ron Rivera about, I don't think he's the best coach, but people, act like, I always joke because the number one thing people point to about what makes Ron Rivera a great coach is they point to the fact, well, he played for the 84 Bears. Okay. I don't know what that has anything to do with it, but they are a tough, physical-minded team. So he's brought that identity over from Carolina with him over here to Washington. Now, a couple of things to know about this. When you look at Washington's defense, they give up the 5th lowest completion percentage in the NFL, but they have given up the 4th most touchdown passes in the league. So quarterbacks don't have a ton of success against them. But when you get down in the red zone, there are opportunities to put the ball in the end zone. They are giving up touchdown passes when the defense is getting down deep. Now, obviously, with no Kyle Pitts, this makes this more of a premium for the Falcons. But again, when we talk about maybe splitting Patterson out wide, maybe trying some different things, again, there is opportunity there. If there has been a weakness, it's that as the Washington defense gets down deeper in the red zone, they are prone to giving up touchdown passes. Now, they've also given up the 10th fewest rushing yards in the league, and they have the 8th lowest yards per attempt number that they've given up, and they've given up the 7th fewest rushing touchdowns. So we obviously know the Falcons' identity going in this thing is run the football heavily. But this is not going to be an easy team to accumulate yards against. So when you get down deeper in the red zone against this team, assuming that we have some drives that head down in the red zone, you may have to be a little bit more creative. This is where Arthur needs to maybe get a little bit expanded in his play calling when they get in the red zone. It may not be very easy to just line up and mash it right at them, right? So being able to pass the football down deep in the red zone. I know that puts, ball in harm's way with Mariota and all that good kind of stuff, but still, that's where the advantage is, though. And I think that this is going to be a very grind-em-out game for the Falcons. I don't think they're going to put the ball in the air a whole lot, and they're going to probably not, find a ton of success. But it feels like one of those games where, it used to be the joke about with Barry Sanders, right? You go and pound, and he's going to have a whole bunch of negative yardage plays. Then all of a sudden he gets a big play. You're going to have to kind of wear down this defense. And we talked about the other day, and I'll mention it here in just a minute, just the idea of what the biggest matchup is in this game. Now, here's the big thing about the Washington defense the last 3 weeks, and this is why I say it's going to be such tough sledding. They've only given up 171 yards total the last 3 weeks on defense. 171 yards total in the last 3 weeks is all that they've given up. And they don't give up a lot of yards per carry. They don't give up a whole lot on defense. They're a very salty defense that comes after you. So you have to stay committed to the run. It's easy if things don't go well at times to not stay committed. It's one of the things I love about Arthur Smith is He will commit to the run no matter what because he knows he can't throw it around. And he knows without Kyle Pitts, you can't start hucking it around. So you have to stay with it. As a fan, you better be ready for plenty of negative yardage plays. Now, we talked about Jonathan Allen against Drew Dahlman and our interior offensive line. That is the matchup of the week. Look, they are terrific everywhere along their defensive line. Kwity Paye, Jonathan Allen, they're going to get Chase Young back, right? They have a lot of talent on that defensive line, and they reek and they create a whole lot of havoc. We talked about the fact that they have 3 guys that have at least 6 sacks. So now you got Sweat, you got Allen, and they've invested a lot of high draft capital, right? It's not coincidence that all that high draft capital pays off, over a longer period of time, right? As far as how do I get myself good? Be really good on your line of scrimmage, and they're outstanding on their defensive line. So you take Jonathan Allen, you take Montez Sweat, you take Daron Payne, I should say, not Kwity Paye, but Daron Payne, and you take Chase Young, you got a really formidable defensive front. But you're going to have to stay committed to what the game plan is. You can't afford for this team, absolutely cannot afford to get into hucking it all around, throwing it all around, because they're a very average offense. I mean, look, they don't put up a whole crap ton of points and yards and things like that. The fact that they are I think like 23rd in scoring or something like that in the league. So it's not a matter of that they go out there and they score a whole bunch of points on you and they run the score up. Yeah, 23rd in the NFL in points per game at 19 and a half. But their defense is really salty, and they're really good on third down. 32.8% is all they give up on third down. So look, keys to this game to me, you've got to stay ahead of the chains. You have to make yards on first and second down. You cannot get yourself into either obvious passing situations or any sort of third and long, because this defense will feast on you. And the more that you allow Allen and Sweat and Payne and those guys, and I don't know how much Chase Young is going to play. I don't know that he's going to, full all out ready to go. My guess says he'll be on a pitch count, but they have plenty of guys up front to take care of the Falcons. So you're going to have to find a way to block Jonathan Allen this game. He blew up the Texans' offensive line last week, crushed their center, crushed their interior line. 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits. That's the kind of season that he's having. Crushed their line last week. So if you can stay ahead of the chains, if you can keep the chains moving, they're, like I said, their offense is not going to go in and quick strike and roll it up on you. They've got some weapons, no doubt about it. But Heineke's been a middle-of-the-road quarterback. He has taken 9 sacks, I believe is the number that I saw in his starts this year. Let me confirm that. Yes, he has taken 9 sacks on the season in only 5 games, only 60.8% completion percentage. He's got 5 touchdowns and 4 picks. So he's prone to take sacks, prone to take some turnovers. He doesn't complete a high percentage. But again, our pass defense has been anemic. Let's put it that way. That's a lot to do with injury. I expect with A.J. Terrell back that this thing is going to get more on track. Do I think the Falcons can win? Yes, it would have to be a very grind them out kind of game. Am I very optimistic? I don't know. This is a tough spot for the Falcons. They come out with a win on Sunday. Now we can really start to talk about playoffs and making a run at all that. I want to talk with my friends over at BetOnline. Listen, have you headed over to betonline.net? It's your number one source for all of your sports wagering information. Look, you want to get in on some action. We're closing out the college football season. We're headed toward the home stretch of the NFL season. College basketball is cranked up. NBA is full go right now. We're in NHL season. A lot that's going on right now, right? All kinds of things that are spinning around and going right now. All kinds of different things you can get in on. Head to betonline.net today. It's really simple. You take your mobile device, head to betonline.net. Check out all of the information that they have available at your fingertips. You want to be a smarter sports bettor? Listen, they got news, esports, scores, stats, all kinds of fantasy information, all kinds of different things that you need to be a smarter sports bettor. Then when you've got that information, jump in on the action. You feel like the Falcons are a good play this weekend? Jump in on the action. You feel like Georgia's going to cover that 30, 35-point number? Jump in on the action. So take the mobile device, head to betonline.net today, check out all of the information they have, get in on the action. It's where the action starts. So as we continue to look at this game, to me, The guy that really needs to just ball it out this week is CP84. Now, obviously, look, he missed the time with the knee surgery and all that, and he's been back in 3 games. So in the 3 games that he's been back, he's accumulated 28 rushing attempts with 4 receptions. Can I tell you, he's got to this week be full go, and I mean 17, 20, 25 carries in the backfield. You have to rely and lean on him heavily this week. And I need him to find a way to catch maybe 4 or 5 passes this week. So what I need out of Patterson is a New Orleans Saints type of performance. Remember that performance at the beginning of the season? 22 rushes, 120 yards. He caught 3 passes for 16 yards. He had a rushing touchdown in the game, or a game like he had in Seattle. 17 carries, 141 yards, scored a touchdown, had the 1 reception for 12 yards. I need him to have his best game of the season because I don't know if they get stymied in the run game. I don't know what their alternative path to success is. So first off, Patterson, the last 3 weeks that he's been back, 13, 5, and 10 have been the number of carries that he's had. His number of receptions, 1, 1, 2. All of that has to go up this week. And if you look at his numbers, you start getting into some of the analytics about his numbers. He's almost 50-50 as far as yards before contact and yards after contact. So he's done a good job of, he gets through the hole quickly and he picks up a decent amount of yards, but he also finds a way to break through some tackles and pick up some yards after contact. Well, he's going to find out that he's going to find defensive linemen from, the Commodores in his lap very quickly. He's going to find those guys very quickly in his lap. So he's going to have to be able to break through some tackles. But you need to feed him the rock. He's one of those guys that it feels like if you continue to feed him the rock, he is going to find a way to break off one of those big runs. So I would tell you right now, 20 is the magic number about where I need him to be. I need him to be at least 20 carries. I need him to be somewhere around 100 yards on those 20 carries. And I need him to catch maybe 3 or 4 passes for 30, 35 yards. I need him to be a huge part of the offense this week. He's our best offensive player going into this game. He's the guy who makes such a difference. Now, whether or not that means he's going to do a lot in kickoff returns, I don't know. Arthur Smith was kind of one way or the other and stuff like that. But if it were me and I'm coaching, he's back on kickoff returns. He was the special teams player of the week this week, by the way, if you didn't get to see it. I know part of that is he set the record and all that kind of stuff. But still, special teams player of the week. Me, I need him in all phases that I can get him. Hell, I might put him at cornerback if I need help back there. No, just joking. But anyway, I need him to return kicks if need be. And I need him to touch it a whole bunch of times. The more he touches it, the less my quarterback has to go out and touch it. So this is one of those weeks where, feed him the rock. We've talked about before that, that game against New Orleans where he had the 22 carries, that was the highest total he'd ever had in a game. Well, I need him to be somewhere around that. And I think that if they can feed him that much, and look, I want to mix in Algier. I want to mix in Huntley. I want to see those guys get carries as well. This is an all hands on deck running game because I think that yards are going to be tough and it's going to be hard to get yards in the running game, but they have to find a way to grind it out. And that all starts with Patterson. That starts with his ability to get the running game cranked up and going. I'm not sure about Mariota in the run game because that they're going to be watching and spying on him because they're going to keep their integrity coming on the outside. They're going to, with Young and Sweat and those guys, they're going to keep their integrity on the outside. And they feel like their interior guys can manhandle our offensive line. So I don't know how much Mariota is going to be involved in a running game like this. I need guys. I don't want my quarterback getting in too much harm's way. I don't need him trying to run at Payne and Sweat and Young and Allen. I don't need him putting himself in harm's way. I need CP to get out there and carry the bulk of this load for this offense this weekend. As far as passing-wise goes, again, I'm going to keep saying it, 20 attempts. If Mariota is somewhere around 14 for 20, 15 for 20, that's all I need out of it. For, say, 145 yards. Okay, I'll take that. 150 yards, I'll take that. I don't need him to go out and do a whole lot, okay? Their offense is not going to get it cranked up and get a lot of things going. In fact, if you look over the last few weeks for the Commodores, they have, their offense, their passing offense, 191, 178, 126. So they haven't thrown it for 200 yards in the last 3 games that they've played. So again, their offense is not going to get way out in front of you, and you're going to have to throw and try to play catch up with it. It's going to be a grind them out game. But this is the week where I need CP to get himself back into that first week of the season, first couple of weeks of the season, where the 22, the 17 carries, the 120, 141 yards. I don't know if he can accumulate that many yards, but I think the more that you feed him in this game and throw him some balls, again, split him out, throw a couple of quick ins, a screen, whatever. Get the ball in CP's hands this week. I'm hoping that when all is said and done, that we're going to look up and he's going to have somewhere between 20 and 25 touches in this game. I think if they can get him the ball that many times, I think the Falcons definitely find themselves in a situation where they can make some good things happen. All right, I want to mention, too, don't forget to make Locked On Sports Today your second listen every day. Of course, we thank you for making Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen. But listen, biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game takes, your take of the day, all of it is there at Locked On Sports Today. You can check them out for free on Odyssey, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Check out Locked On Sports Today. So I was reading an article from my buddy Pat Benson, who covers the Atlanta Hawks for Sports Illustrated. And it was interesting because he was quoting an article from Michael Scotto, one of the inside NBA inside reporters. I don't know. He's got a blue check mark. That's what has to matter most, right? But anyway, this is what they say in the article. Quote, rival NBA executives believe that Atlanta will likely have to part with either John Collins, Bogey Bogdanovic, or Clint Capella to avoid looming luxury tax concerns next season. And they go on to say that they think that Bogey is the most available trade piece among the people that are mentioned in there. Now, look, we got rumors last week or whatever it was, or this week or whatever it was, that John Collins, they're opening up and exploring trade talks, okay? Now, again, understand, this is the same blue checkmark media who told me that Collins would be traded on draft night, or, well, not really draft night, but he'll be traded here in the offseason. It's a done deal. Well, that didn't happen either out there. Look, here's the thing. Here's where you look at the Hawks, right? And this is why this year is so important to the direction, right? Remember how I spent so much of the first part of this show when we first started up in April? Which way is the pendulum going to swing for the Atlanta Hawks, right? So if you look at where the Hawks are at, okay, they're teetering on the luxury tax right now. They're within a couple of $1 million of the luxury tax. And the number one reason that they moved on from Kevin Huerter is not a matter of they didn't like Kevin Huerter as a player, but his new $65 million, whatever, $64 million contract was about to kick in year one. And I know Tony Ressler has said in the past that they are willing to go in the luxury tax. But remember, he also said they're willing to go in the luxury tax if it makes sense. Well, right now the Hawks are 10-7 on the year. So it's a good start. They're not in bad shape or anything like that. And we talked about starting tonight. I'll be at the game tonight against the Sacramento Queens. That's a pretty good squad. They're a couple games above 500. But the schedule opens up, right? There's plenty of, over the next 19 games from tonight to the end of the calendar year, plenty of Detroit, Orlando, Charlotte, Indiana, Miami, Chicago, right? You got some of the bottom feeders and really some of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference right now over this next 19-game stretch. And then that'll end at the end of the calendar year. The last game of the calendar year is on the 30th against the Lakers here at State Farm Arena. So there's an opportunity. I said before, get me a 13-6 stretch starting tonight to the end of the calendar year, and you'd be 10 games over 500 going into next year. But why this is so important is that you have to think about where the Hawks are at. So remember, Capella signs a 2-year extension. So we got him for a couple of more years, right? John Collins signed his deal a couple of years ago. So when you look at where they're at, Bogdanovic this year, this will be Bogey's last year in Atlanta. Either they'll trade him and move on, or if he picks up his player option, because next year he has a player option available, they'll find a way to move him. because he's an unrestricted free agent in 2 years. If he doesn't pick up he's got this year and then he's got a player option for next year. And for sure, he's an unrestricted free agent the year after that. So if he picks up his option, I think they'd rather he do that with another franchise. So I do expect Bogey is going to be on the move. Okay. Now, the other part of this too is DeJounte Murray. What's the long-term future of DeJounte Murray? They gave up draft capital to get him. He's got this year and he's got next year, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. Okay. You think he's playing in 2 years for a ham sandwich? See what he's done for this team and this franchise. You see how good of a player he is. You know what his reputation is around the league. He's going to command a high premium. Okay. You start getting into signing DeJounte Murray, you are well in the luxury tax. And the thing about the luxury tax in the NBA is why you have to navigate it so much is the fact that your first year, not so bad. But when you accumulate luxury tax money year over year, now you really get hammered. Because now you're talking about like 150% that you make up in the taxes and stuff like that. The numbers get like a boulder rolling downhill. You end up finding yourself very quickly in cap purgatory, or you're forking out a whole bunch of cash. Well, that's fine if you're the Golden State Warriors, right? If you're the top team in the NBA winning an NBA title. That ain't so good if you're middle of the road. And the Hawks right now are 15th in the NBA in payroll. So they are spending some money, and they're spending in the upper half. But the luxury tax is going to become a reality if this team gets good. And that's the thing. Is this team going to be good enough to make that jump feet first into the luxury tax pool? If not, if this is another year where we look up and they're, let's just even say that they're 6th or 7th, 8th in the Eastern Conference, and they're kind of good but not great, and they don't get very far in the playoffs, I think you're going to see a lot of changes for the Atlanta Hawks. I think the Hawks are going to start to say, okay, let's keep a few guys core, because they've locked up a lot of guys, right? They've locked up DeAndre Hunter. They've locked up Capella for a couple of years. Collins is locked up. Trey is locked up, right? They've locked up a whole bunch of their pieces that are not, rookie guys like Jalen Johnson and Griffin and those guys. They've locked up a bunch of their pieces. I understand completely where they're coming from, because, again, I do believe Tony Ressler when he says, look, we'll go in the luxury tax if it makes sense. Okay, if this is another middle-of-the-road kind of year, they won't go in the luxury tax, and there will be changes that will come starting this year, starting at the trade deadline, whether that's Capella, Bogey, whatever. They will start to move salary off the books, because there's no need to go in the luxury tax if you're just some Midland team that's a first or second round playoff team. So that's why this year becomes so important for the Hawks. You're going to have to decide what you're going to do with DeJounte Murray. You're going to have to decide, is the luxury tax realistic? If we're making another run in the Eastern Conference Finals this year, they'll be in the luxury tax. They'll find a way to sign DeJounte Murray, and they'll find themselves in the luxury tax when all is said and done. But it has to make sense. And it's a good start, 10-7, but it's going to have to be better than that. That's why this 19-game stretch gets to be important. You want to go into 2023 with a good, optimistic outlook as you head toward the first half of the season. When we get to January 1st, we're not exactly at the halfway point, but we're within, a handful of fingers to the halfway point. And this season will dictate what direction they're going to go. This will not be a call that Landry Fields or, your coach or whatever makes. This is going to come from the direct top and Tony Ressler. And I understand, and I've talked to Tony Ressler before, they're not afraid to go in the luxury tax. They're not afraid to spend money, but they're also not going to spend money stupidly. You want to sign DeJounte Murray, you want to be in the luxury tax, you want to make a run at it, then they have to win basketball games, and that starts tonight with the Sacramento Queens, and especially for this next 19-game stretch. All right, thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen every day. Make sure you hit us up on Locked On Sports Today for your second listen. Biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. You can find them on Odyssey, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Check them out today. We ask you to head to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta in your search browser. When you get there, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment. We're free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify, Odyssey. Check us out there. And of course, Roku and Amazon Fire. Believe it or not, yes, we are available on those platforms. So plug us in, load us up, check it out there wherever you do those. I don't even know how you do those things, but I know that they're cool. Roku and Amazon Fire. And then give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. All right. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving holiday. We're not going to be with you tomorrow. We'll be back for an ATL Hangouts on Friday. We'll get you ready for Falcons and the Commodores. Have a great holiday. We'll talk to you on Friday. This has been Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.